Amanda, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Emily. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Welcome to a special edition of my podcast, Powered by Authenticity. Excited to be streaming our first video into our brand new YouTube channel that we've created. So thank you for being our first guest.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be the first guest. Appreciate that.
Well, Amanda, how would you like to give a quick introduction to yourself and your organization?
Absolutely. Thanks so much. So, I am the founder of a boutique consulting firm called Cornerstone Paradigm Consulting. Um, did not think through the name, by the way, when I first created it, so it's quite long. But yes, Cornerstone Paradigm Consulting. We are an industry agnostic business operations consulting firm, and we cover end to end operations. So, people, process, technology, customer experience. And we do that by way of process and technology stack mapping. So, yeah,
That
that's a
is
little bit about us.
That's awesome. And actually, you've been a guest before, and the story behind your name is fantastic. So I think
Yeah,
it's a great name.
very long. I'm like, it's like a mouthful.
Well, and for those who are unaware, I actually have my own consulting firm as well. So I run PBA Consulting, and that's really an offshoot from Powered by Authenticity. And my specialty is IT, specifically really in the healthcare, life sciences, payer, provider space.
Yeah,
So I think what I do and what you do mirror very well together.
yes, yes,
And
yes. We're very good partners.
yeah, absolutely. And that's why we're here today. I know at our many conversations that we've actually had the opportunity to have, we've talked about tech debt and what
Yes.
is tech debt. And so I wanted to have you on just to have a conversation about this important topic. I think it parallels both with what you do, with what I do, and right now is a topic that everybody should be talking about. So
Yes.
yeah. So I would love to hear your definition of tech debt.
Yeah. So actually, for us and from my perspective, technology debt can show up in a couple of ways. One of the most common ways is an organization has a lot of technology, so it's not the lack of investing in technology. They have a lot of technology, but it's usually too much. It's we use a couple of features of this, we use a few features of that, and oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes, all of those different platforms of technology are typically not connected to one another. We call it technology stacked.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's not stacked and it's pretty compartmentalized. Or technology debt can also be we've purchased too many licenses of a specific software, or we're overusing on a license that we don't have permission to use. So it can show up in a different couple of different ways. But technology debt is usually the in excess of software and technology and SaaS platforms and all the other, yeah. So it could be hardware as well.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And I think um, you know the debt increases easily over time.
yes,
There's usually a process that's bleeding that a new tool will fix. So
yeah,
instead of looking at what they currently have in their stack, they just go purchase.
yeah,
I think I was sharing with you that I've been working with many different organizations, and one had 59 ERPs.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you know,
Oh my God.
look at the debt that you're for that is the people, the skill set, the license costs, all of these things that are out there.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy. I mean, I think, and I think it's done with good intention.
Hmm.
They identify a problem and they're trying to fix it and fix it quickly. And I feel like that's where folks like you and I kind of come in and say, hang on a second, let's figure out what's going on. At least from my perspective, I figure out what's going on in the current state. What problem are we actually trying to solve? Let's get to the root cause of what that actually is, and then let's look at what technology you currently have. So
Yep.
I do think a lot of organizations get into technology debt with good intentions, trying to be prepared, trying to solve a problem, and but oftentimes it's counterintuitive,
Yeah.
counterproductive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think right now it's important to have this discussion. Um,
Yes.
you know, Organizations do not have the budgets that they used to have. So,
Yeah.
what are you seeing as far as opportunity out there? Why is it so important to be talking about this now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for a number of reasons. One, sort of like what you just mentioned, organizations don't have the budget that they had for a number of reasons. I think consumer spending habits are different. You know, just things are they cost more. Inflation.
Hmm.
There's a lot of different factors, but you and I have spoken a lot of. I don't know if we've spoken on your previous show or we've had so many conversations about this, but no one's ever gotten fired for buying IBM or whatever. Like today, you will
Yep.
actually. So I think this conversation becomes really important as leaders are trying to be more efficient, scale and grow a business, improve their customer experience, improve their employee engagement. It's Yeah, I mean, I think it's so relevant now because the world isn't the same as it was. And we're all watching, right? Like
Yeah.
even consumer habits, we're watching, where we spend our money. What are those companies doing with that money? How are they spending it? So there's a lot of factors that go into play, I think, today.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned kind of that consumer experience. And, for my world in healthcare, that
Yeah.
includes patients.
Oh, absolutely.
The patients want to have a better experience.
Yeah.
They want to know what they're walking into. And from a healthcare perspective, knowing the right stack to be able to implement and integrate all of those pieces to give a good experience it's paramount.
Yeah. And I would also like to add to that, Emily, is your customer, your patient, or your advocate is not just the patient, it's also the employee. The
Good
employee
point.
has to be on board with what you're doing, with what you're selling, with your care, right? They are the front line, they are the face of the organization. They see that, in this case, they see the patient
Hmm.
first. And if they don't believe in what you're doing, and they're cobbling around and fussing around and super stressed out, that's another customer that you need to, right, like those are probably your first customers to
Yeah.
serve, your actual customers or your patients. So
Yeah. I mean
yeah.
that's so true. And I know this is probably near and dear to your heart, workflows and the process
Oh yes.
flows behind those. And for every click that a clinician makes in a system, they're away from the patient. So, from a process perspective,
Yeah.
so much opportunity too, right?
So much opportunity. And it kind of goes back to this discussion. I think a lot of organizations, specifically in healthcare as well, they purchase these tools and resources with really good intentions. They're trying to help the physician's assistant or the nurse or they're doing it with good intention.
Yep.
It's just, not doing it with someone like myself or you to help them along that journey is how they get into this sort of quicksand environment.
Yeah. And it's funny. I think this problem has always been a problem.
Yes. Yes.
But we're just starting to really talk about it. Again, I'll go back to the nurse who used to be able to buy a software application to help a specific problem that came up with a patient, and that application still sitting on a computer in a closet somewhere, still being
Yeah.
used,
Yeah.
still being paid for randomly.
Yes.
But we have now the epics and the large applications that
Yeah.
probably have that same type of
Yeah.
integration. So, how do you how do you even start to go about identifying where you may have opportunity for reducing tech debt?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great question. And this is, of course, I'm going to nerd out a little bit for a second here. So we start every single project, regardless of, what they believe the concern is. We start every single project with a process and a technology stack map together. And even though they are two separate maps, they will, the process map will read also with technology on it.
Hmm.
The way that we go about identifying the areas of opportunity, the technology debt, operational gaps, areas of opportunity, all the areas of concern, is by first understanding the current state, which I think we do really well because we really get quite granular.
Hmm.
Um, in healthcare organizations specifically, I have seen this is pretty wild. So I have seen Epic specifically used over, let's say, over the course of 25, 30 different sites,
Hmm.
clinical sites, used 25 different ways. Nothing was standardized. And so that is a different kind of debt or area of opportunity. Um, and so I find it really helpful. Not that we, in that case, we would streamline the process from one site to the next, because every site, operates differently, but
Yep.
there needs to be some kind of consistency. So that's why I would say, regardless of whether it's patient experience, CAP scores, LACE score, whatever we're brought in to address,
Yep.
we need to first understand how the organization functions from one day to the next, just in general, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you say that because there is very rarely the same workflow
Yeah.
across the different clinics or ambulatory
Yeah.
sites. It's it's just not the same.
Right. Right. And that's sort of how this snowball effect happens. One site will say, well, we have this particular, issue, we have this type of population here, and we need to solve this problem. And so maybe that particular site will purchase something in addition to,
Hmm.
but it's not implemented properly, or maybe it's not built out properly, or it's not connected to their Epic or whatever system that they're using for patient management.
Yep.
um, and it kind of just snowballs from there, right? Like, so
Yep.
it's, and it's a very, very common story.
Yeah, I think too. Um, After an implementation, so after you purchase your new piece of
Yeah.
shiny software, how many
Yeah.
times are we going back to revisit the capabilities of the new version? So instead of just purchasing something new, are we taking time? Have you seen customers take the time to go back and revisit with the same vendor to make sure that they can't just increase upon the functionality that they're currently using?
Yeah, I mean, we do that with our long-term
Hmm.
clients. When we implement a technology and there's going to be some new features being rolled out, I find that that is yet another opportune time to look at process. Is this and we call it, gosh, now I'm just blanking on the word, but we call it continuous improvement. Sorry, I just had a brain. We call it continuous improvement, but we take those opportunities to look at the process. Is this currently working with these new features that are coming out? One, everybody needs to be trained on them to understand how they
Yep.
work, what they're going to do, what does it mean for the organization? Are we going to use it, right? Because not every feature that comes out you need
Yep.
or you're going to use. But then also, how can we re-engineer the process to make it even simpler than it was before, and ensure that that exercise is kind of rolled out, if you will, across multiple sites or departments or whatever it might
Yeah.
be. So I would say, like, anytime a new feature is coming out, one, let's learn how to use it. We may not need it today, but let's learn all how to use it. Let's do a lunch and learn or whatever it might
Hmm.
be. We may not need it, but it's also an opportune time to do something we call continuous improvement,
Yep.
which is looking at your processes, looking at all the systems, looking at and being on top of it, with, in addition to the day-to-day running of the business, but looking at this and kind of keeping a close eye on the business in and of itself.
Yep. And
Yeah.
two things that you said there. So, looking at it and training. And
Yes.
so, from a looking at it perspective and looking at updated functionality, that takes time away from somebody else's day job. So
Yeah.
do you find that there's committees, usually like steering committees for certain applications, strategic
Yeah.
governance? So what are you seeing from just an oversight? Who's at the table to make those decisions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, so with some of our larger clients, of course, there's going to be a steering committee
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to have a meeting about it and we're going to talk through it. But I also say, at least to our clients, we assign process owners that can be a part of the steering committee, but are close enough to the process. And I mean, they have to be doing the process every single day, not a manager, not a stakeholder. The process owners are the people doing this process, this work every single day. They need to have a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
So, although I love steering committees and I think they're very important to have, and we need to keep the conversation going, the folks that need to be at the table or need to have a voice in process revision, um, continuous improvement, adding new features, taking away whatever that looks like, you have to have the process owners who are doesn't have to you don't have to, not every customer service rep or front desk
Mm-hmm.
person needs to be a
Yep.
process owner. One that knows it really well. They have to have a voice and a seat at that table, whether it's literally, being a part of the steering committee or figuratively through a manager or whatever it
Yep.
might be. You cannot not include them.
Yeah. I Something else just popped into my head when you said that. That's a great growth opportunity for a resource within an organization to be able to own that process and be able to communicate to the executive team whether or not the functionality improves or
Yeah,
adds zero value, and we should look away from it. But you know, piggybacking that onto training, those are the types of opportunities that sometimes people say it's taking too much time, and that time costs money, so we're not going to commit our resources to attending appropriate training, getting the reach opportunity to be a process owner. What's your perspective on those being additions to debt versus actually opportunity for overall improvement?
yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about that, and I won't waste too much time on it. But my initial thought is, what is it costing you if we don't do that?
Mm-hmm.
In the long run, there is a cost associated with keeping the status quo, doing things just how we did it. We already did this exercise 6 months ago, um, and let's just leave it alone. What is the cost associated with that? And I would also say that compensation for employees, for human capital, I talk quite a bit about this because we cover all four key areas, but human capital is not always about monetary compensation, right? Not,
Yep.
not everybody wants more money. That's not
Yeah.
what drives everyone. It might drive you, it might drive me, but you can't assume that that's what drives everyone. Compensation could mean more responsibility, could mean a promotion, could mean you get to own this process. You get to enlighten us, the executives, on how it's working. That could be a huge promotion for someone.
Yep.
That could be a dream come true. Not everybody wants to be an executive. Not everybody wants. So I say this to any business leader that is watching, regardless of the sector. One, compensation is not always monetary. That's not what matters to everybody. It's
Yep.
nice, and I don't think you should underpay people. Some people want that promotion, want the responsibility, want the ownership, but you have to also think about, yes, it takes time. If you have to send someone to training for 5 hours or whatever it might be, and training, by the way, can be done virtually, can be done after hours, can be done. There's a lot of ways that we could do this.
Yep.
Training is not like you have to sit in a room for a week and learn all these. It's
Yep.
usually not that intense. Usually the training is pretty simple. Um, but I think you have to really think about what will it cost if you don't do that.
Yep. Uh, I agree. So, and I think IT specifically is the
Yeah,
perfect place because a lot of, if I look at organizations who hire out of college, so they do the internship programs,
yeah,
that that recent hire wants opportunity to grow and expand,
yeah,
and with that, you're not adding anything extra to that that debt associated to that head count. They're there. They're excited. They're going to stay for the long term. So I think it's exciting to see what could potentially happen, especially under
Yeah.
application support.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that that's a missed opportunity. That's a missed opportunity. As leaders, we're not responsible for creating a thousand mini us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not what I'm not responsible. You're not responsible for creating people who are going to mirror exactly what we would do, how we would do it, and when we would do it, and all the
Yep.
other things. We're responsible for lighting the fire in the people that we are leading as leaders. That is what our responsibility is as a leader, to help you find your passion, help you grow as a person, this is your career, that's our role. And so if you don't do that, then, I don't know what leadership looks like if you don't do that.
Yeah, I agree
You
with
know,
you.
you're
Yeah.
hindering someone's growth, and you don't I mean, frankly, most of them are smarter than all of us, right, put together. So if you don't allow someone the autonomy to grow and learn and be creative, even in healthcare, I mean, be creative
Yeah.
on how to solve problems and what workflows look like and what could we do differently. I think ultimately you're going to pay the price. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Which honestly is just going to increase your overhead.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have to
You
go.
lose your overhead. You're going to lose great talent. You're going to miss an opportunity to be innovative as an organization. To be, you know, you don't want to be the second choice
Yep.
because the first choice is booked, right? You
Yep.
want to be the sought out place
Yeah.
to work, to provide care, to all the things. So, and I think it starts with that.
Yeah. I agree. Something else that just popped into my head, and this is nowhere on the show like prep.
Okay.
So, in thinking about ways to reduce tech debt right now and to address it, AI is top of everybody's mind. So,
Yes.
where can we automate workflows? Where can we automate those processes behind the scenes to reduce the manual interventions and put our good resources to use for a much better reason? So, how do you think AI is going to help offset the burden?
Yeah, I mean, I think when folks hear AI today, it sounds very, very scary, and I can appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
AI has been around for about 20 years, so we're just starting to talk about
Yeah.
it, but it's always kind of been in our lives. I don't think we knew that, and I don't think we were calling it AI, but it's been around for a long time.
Yep.
Um, but like anything, I mean, even I remember when social media was just coming out and becoming popular, and I won't name the platform that was the first social media platform because I was one of the adopters, but
MySpace.
it was MySpace. It sure was. But yeah, but I will say this: like with anything, even social media now with AI or anything else, coming out in the future, um, we will put guardrails on it. And so AI is not going to take over. We're not going to have AI robots walking around taking our jobs. Like, maybe in some cases we will,
Yep.
right? But it's not like we're not going to become like one of those movies, right? Like where there's just robots walking around and we have nothing to do. Um, I see AI helping diagnose faster,
Mm-hmm.
running less tests that cost an enormous amount of money to hospitals and um, healthcare facilities that are really doing their best to try to understand what's wrong with this particular patient.
Yep.
I think AI is going to play a major role in um, automating tasks that may be a bit administrative. It
Yep.
will pick up automatically. So I think that there is a lot of opportunity. And I know that that sounds really scary. And like I said, I can really appreciate that. But I think we're thinking AI because it can create a human that looks just like me to say things that I've never said.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't see that being. I think that's a short-lived story.
Yep.
I think we're going to get a hold of that at some point, and yeah. But I see AI being a positive, force in the healthcare space for things like diagnosing
Yep.
and um, maybe putting in several different kinds of symptoms and naming something and being able to communicate that across
Yep.
continents.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. I think we also have to put some guardrails on it. So that's another thing.
Yeah, we do because there's also there's still a human factor in AI,
Yes.
and by unfortunate ways there can be um, inherent equity concerns, inclusion concerns when we're
Yes.
standing up AI. And the other place where I see it helping are places like at help desks. It's gonna
Yes.
put the tier one folks up to a tier two,
Yes.
and there
Yes.
you're able to augment your resources in a really effective way.
Yeah.
So I see that.
And I
Thing.
think it's going to allow the human to also grow and become a
Yeah.
better agent, right? A better help
Yep.
desk agent, a better, because we won't have to do some of the typing, some of the
Yeah.
administrative stuff. It'll help us like I think that's just yet another form of diagnostic,
Yep.
analysis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be fun to see where it goes. I mean, from a
Yeah.
tech perspective, it's we can do anything we
Yeah.
want,
I mean,
honestly.
like I said, I can appreciate folks being a little nervous about
Hmm.
it. I think anything new is scary
Yeah.
because it's unknown, and we both know change is very scary. Um, but I also think there there are positive outcomes to it,
Yep.
like anything. The internet, social media, all the other things. Like it's always scary when it first, becomes sort of the spotlight. But at the end of the day, it will help us be better.
Yep.
Like, you know, before Google, we were going and through textbooks, and it was much harder to do things, and now we can just Google it.
Yep.
Where so I think that there's a lot of positive opportunity there for AI.
I do too, and I think looking at from the debt perspective, it's
Yes.
going to be a great way to automate those workflows. Probably put some uh, visibility into where we were spending time where we
Yeah.
don't need to anymore, and freeing up those
Yeah.
resources both from a financial and a people perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm
awesome.
totally with you.
So we've identified we have high debt. We know we need to make some changes. What are some of the next steps that you guide your clients to? How do you help them start to realize where their problems are lying?
Yeah, I mean, if after we've done the process and
Yep.
technology stack mapping, which it's really fun for us to do it because it's kind of like putting together a puzzle. Then we have a very serious conversation about the operational gaps, the areas of opportunity. A lot of the time, and for technology debt, if we believe that they've purchased too many licenses or they're um, misusing the license and they're going to obviously have to pay for that, that's a that could be very, very expensive.
Yep.
That's another conversation. But um, we start to have conversations, low hanging fruit, if there is low hanging
Yep.
fruit, which a lot of the times there is,
Yep.
sometimes there's not. I mean, sometimes it's just like we need to replace this thing, or we have so many systems. We need to talk about shadow IT. We need to talk about, because that's included in technology
Yep.
debt. It's not just we purchased too many Microsoft licenses. Technology debt also includes shadow IT. Um, and we have a very serious conversation about what needs to happen to get a single source of truth, which is the first and foremost, most
Yep.
important thing. Um, Combine, clean up the data, scrub it. What pieces of technology can we eliminate? What do you need to add, right? Sometimes they have so much technology, but it's the wrong technology.
Yep.
They've outgrown some of it, and some of it's totally inappropriate for what they're trying to do.
Yep.
Um, and we kind of start there. It's it's a very long meeting after that, after the technology stack mapping and process mapping, because we're having a very real conversation about factual
Yep.
uh, information that we've uncovered in the organization. So, you know, and we guide them in the right direction. I'm not going to let them just keep buying and adding and
Yeah.
whatever, because they hired us for they hired us for our expertise, and that's what we're going to do is
Yep.
give them the best sound advice we possibly can.
Yep. And this is where a lot of times we start to bring in conversations around better IT asset management and service catalogs and all
Yeah,
that other good stuff that comes with helping to streamline the stack.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's I always say this to when we're working with a client, they're often hesitant to introduce us to IT. And I'm like, no, no, no. We work beautifully with
Yeah.
IT because we get it and we understand what IT is trying to do. And IT understands that we're going to get rid of the things that you're putting band-aids on, and we're going to get rid of the 59 ERPs, and that's really
Yeah.
where IT and folks like us kind of work in tandem quite beautifully,
Yep.
because we get it and we're here for the same objective.
Yep. And I
Yeah.
think that's, fair. And I think the objective, who their end client is, whether
Yeah.
it's the patient, whether it's another consumer um,
Yeah.
type, it's you can put that hat on and understand where their ultimate goal is, and that's to keep the clients or the customers happy. So,
Yeah, but I would also say we're also doing it for the employees
yep,
that are working so
I love
hard
that.
to try to be really good at what they do. People take a lot of pride in what they do. So it's both the internal customer, the employees, the human capital,
Mm-hmm.
the external customer, the overall business, the overall
Yep,
reputation of the business.
yep,
So it's there's a couple folds to it. Yeah.
yeah, and I always think, and maybe this is a different perspective, but our employees and our team members have to be happy. They have to be
Exactly.
respected. They have to be allowed to go take a vacation without fear that an application is going to break and they're going to get. I
Yeah.
mean, that team member satisfaction is first and foremost with every day that I wake up. I want the patients to be supported. You know, I want them to receive the best care, the best device, from a replacement device or whatever it may be. But
Yeah.
I can't do it without a good team.
No. And the truth is that if the team doesn't have the right tools and resources that they need
Yep.
to be successful in the role, your patients are going to feel it
Yep.
because they're going to be waiting much longer for appointments, for information, for prescriptions, for whatever it might be, for results, for their blood test results, or whatever it might be.
Yep.
Some of the information is not going to be totally accurate. The patients know at some point, the things that you're trying to hide, or the things that you think people don't see, the patients in this case, they do.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's just one of those things. I just wonder why they wait, because it's not a secret. You're not, you might think patients don't know. They know.
Yep.
They know. Even if they don't see it, they see it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
They know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, think about it. I mean, there's great uh, trials that have been out there by implementing, more of the robot to go get medications. So historically, a patient wouldn't see a nurse or a clinician for how many periods of time because they're running. They've got to go get the prescriptions from the pharmacy. They have to go between floors. They have to all of these things. And by having that new technology be able to map out to the pharmacy and back to deliver the medication, that
Yes.
nurse can now be sitting with the patient. They can
You mean
now,
like a med bank?
yeah,
I love med banks. Yes. Yes. I mean, there's so much opportunity, but again, it's about like the right tools and resources. And if we don't do things to help our people, ultimately the overall business is going to suffer. And your
yep,
customers or your patients or whoever
yep,
whoever is on the receiving end, they're going to know. They're
yep,
going to feel it. And some, might not want to do business with you, or receive care from you at that office
Yep.
because they don't want it. It's like a bad vibe, if you will, you
Yeah.
know?
Absolutely. And healthcare is becoming more and more of a consumer driven market.
Yeah.
More and more
Yeah. Yeah.
choices. So, but
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah. All right, so, how do we help? What are actions? What are things that you and I can do together to help realize when there's a heavy stack, when we're, you know, carrying too much debt? Again, whether that's from a tech actual application stack perspective, not having the right resources or over allocators. How do we help?
Yeah. I mean, this is not a shameless plug, by the way. You can use whoever you want, but I highly encourage any organization to stop DIYing it. Someone said, and I can't take credit for this, even though I would love to, but I'm not going to take credit for this quote because it's genius and I did not come up with it. But you can't read the label from inside the bottle, right? Like you can't read the label of a peanut butter jar from inside the jar. So thinking that you can do these things in house or to just DIYing it, you're digging yourself deeper
Mm-hmm.
into debt, into unhappy human capital or low employee engagement, um, poor customer service or poor patient experience. And that doesn't mean poor like this is so bad. It means you could be doing better with very little effort.
Yep.
So I would say the thing that you could do is go out there, and if you really want to get help with this, get a professional, not someone who's going to tell you what you want to hear, or who's going to follow some kind of silly textbook strategy, because that doesn't work.
Yep.
Not the popular consulting firm names, because they're going to tell you what you want to hear.
Yep.
But really ask questions. Ask deep, intelligent questions about how are you going to do this? I don't care what you did for a hospital in Maryland or in, Washington State. I don't care. How are you going to help us?
Yep.
We are not those other facilities. You can't carbon copy. You can't copy a strategy you use over there because we're not there. We're here. Ask questions. Figure out who is truly going to help you get to the bottom of what's going on and how are they going to solve it.
Yep.
So try not to buy the shiny new things, right? Like not all diamonds glitter, or I don't know what the quote is, but like you got to really get serious
Yep.
about wanting to solve it. And then I would say from there, this is what I say to our clients. And again, this is not a shameless plug. You can use whoever you want. But I say to our clients, you also have to then be willing to succumb to the process. It is going to be hard. You are going to learn and hear things you don't want to hear.
Yep.
And if the end objective is to get this situation better, um, succumb to the
Yep.
process, keep the end goal in mind, and hopefully you'll get someone who is really good at this and really sensitive to how hard change is, and they initiate change management in their project plan.
Yep.
But that's what I would say is if you're looking for something to do or a way that you can help, I would say it's to stop.
Yep.
Stop DIYing it. Stop trying to, I know you want to save money. You're spending 10 times more than you ever would spend on a professional to come in,
Yep.
do it, get you on the right track. That would be my suggestion. I don't know if that's the answer that you wanted, but that's my suggestion.
No, I like that. And I want to echo something that you said. These are
Yeah,
not cookie cutter projects.
they're not.
So, what I did for one client should absolutely not be the expectation of what's going to happen at the next client. They,
Yeah,
and I am always fearful and always just taken aback when somebody wants to hand you a template and say, go do, because that
yeah,
template is not going to work across the board.
no. And I also say so we don't take them on. So maybe this is another tip, but for the clients that want to hire us and then tell us
Yeah.
how to do this, we don't take those on.
Yeah.
Not because I, don't want to follow the directions, but we have seen this hundreds of times
Yep.
before in different scenarios, and we know how to do this work.
Yep.
And so that's why I always say, like, just make sure that you're asking really good questions, succumb to the process, because it is going to be long, it is going to be really hard. You're going to learn things you don't want to learn. You're going to find out Emily's using scratch paper and she's not shredding it, and it might have PII on it, and it might have like, you're going to learn a lot of things.
Yep.
It's not to get people in trouble. You have to succumb to the process. If you want it to get better, it gets a little worse, and then
Yeah.
it gets better.
It's going to get a lot worse, because
Yeah.
people are going to be upset that you are now changing what they've known forever. But it should be uncomfortable. And if it's
Yes.
not uncomfortable, you're not doing what needs to be done to change the shift in the organization.
Yes, I'm with you 100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think the other thing we can do is just keep talking about the topic, bring awareness, talk about ways to bring in AI or other, whatever we see hit the next round of tech, and it just make people aware of what their options are.
Yeah. Yeah. But I would also say, before you bring in AI, figure out what you're doing now.
Oh,
right?
gosh, yes.
Like, what you need to, don't just add AI because it's the next coolest thing. You got to get someone like Emily or myself, or someone who does this work day to day, has seen this a million different times.
Yep.
Get someone who really genuinely knows this stuff, to help you out, because you will ultimately spend a lot more money than you ever intended to.
Yep.
And that money could be better used somewhere else.
Yep. It's like buying a new application to what you think is going to fix a broken process.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help.
No.
Just actually makes it worse.
because you're frankly, without getting too far into the weeds, you're usually buying a particular shiny new software to solve a problem, but you're not really solving the problem. You're solving the symptom to the
Yep.
problem. That's why I always, I kind of nerd out with the process mapping, but
That's
but
good.
like, yeah, it's just one of those things, like, kind of goes back to the DIY.
Yeah.
And I understand the concept behind, you want to just do it. You want to, you don't want to spend the money, but you're frankly spending a lot more money doing it that way than you would just working with a professional.
Yep.
To help you comb through this.
Yep. Agree.
And not someone who's just going to give you blanket answers. Get Epic, get that. Like, really someone who's going to dig in, factually back up why they're saying what they're saying. You really want that. Like, that's what I mean when I say ask really good questions. You want facts.
Yep.
Where did you get that information from? Why are you telling us to do this or not do this? That's really what you want.
Yep. Agree. Yeah. Well, Amanda, this has been a great I could actually just keep going and chatting about it.
Just stay here all day. No, I'm kidding.
So hopefully we can pick this back up and have another conversation on it. I've really enjoyed having you here. Behind the scenes, producer Ken is still here. Hey, producer Ken.
Hello.
Hey, producer Ken.
He gets to work with new software tonight. We're going to be pushing this out to a couple of different channels. So, Ken, thanks for helping.
You got it.
Yes, Ken, thanks for helping.
He's also wearing Buffalo Bills attire today because, it's Go Bills.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
When is it not appropriate to wear Bills gear?
That's right.
I mean, you said it, not me, right?
And we're at, of course, Go Out here in Batavia, and so very appreciative of the use of their community podcast room. It's been great. And, Amanda, again, this conversation, I think, is increasingly important across all verticals, healthcare, retail. It does not matter. It's a problem for organizations. It's becoming an ever increasingly large problem as budgets shrink. So I would love to formulate the next conversation and have you back on, and let's just keep transparent conversation going and try to help organizations really be mindful of where that spend is coming from.
Yeah, and how to mitigate, right? Like how to
Absolutely.
just step in and do something about it.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's do it.
All right.
I can talk about this all day. I'll stay here all day.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for being here. I appreciate it, and it's been great to have this technical conversation and really, thinking through where we can help support ultimately the patients and the consumers, but most importantly, our team members, and helping to provide
Yeah.
growth and future potential opportunities there too.
Yes.
So,
I'm totally with you on that. Yeah.
well, thanks so much, Amanda. Have a great night, and we're so happy to have had you back on, and we look forward to our next chat.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, have a good
Thanks,
night.
everyone. Thanks, Ken.